Hi, I'm Phil Dispenza, and this is Collecting, Investing, or Somewhere in Between. Last episode, we covered the Atari 2600, and it was rather long, but I actually didn't cover everything I wanted to. There's a few things that I should have probably dwelt upon, especially towards the collecting aspect. But I wanted to correct a couple of things, or clarify a couple of things. One, I said Megaforce might have been Chuck Norris. It wasn't Chuck Norris. But Megaforce was a movie anyway, so that would probably be decent suggestion for getting graded. The second thing, and if anybody wants to contradict me, but again, with the evidence that I come up with, I mentioned Pac-Man being 1982, and if you look at the copyright on the box, it says 1981. All the early boxes are 1981. But if you also look at, I went into great detail about the printer uh, flaps when the box was actually printed. And if you look at the Pac-Man flaps, they were actually printed in early 1982. So even though the game was copyright 1981, which was probably when they developed it, and they filed for the copyright with the U.S. government. The game actually was not released until 1982. Like I said the last video, it was probably a month or two after the boxes were printed. I mean, I don't know how quickly things were released. Maybe it was 2 weeks after it was printed, but um, the evidence shows that it wasn't released till 1982. I mentioned that I'm not going to promote businesses. I'm not going to actually promote anything, any websites or things, or try not to promote. I'm not going to mention them that are actually making money uh, primarily. That's what they're there for, to make money. But I will mention some websites where you can find information, and it's pretty much mostly information. These are the people like me who do this probably just for the love of it. But I will put in my comments um, the website names. Um, this video, I've already decided what I'm going to cover. Uh, I'm actually going to stop it, and then I'm going to do screenshots and stuff. But the first thing I'm going to be covering is I'm going to actually go to my website, do a quick click through, various pages and things, and explain, if you wanted more details, and how I came about my information and things. I think I already recorded the screen itself. I just got to do the audio. Ran about, I think, 8 minutes or so, and then I'll come back to the video here, and I want to go to Atari Age. I mentioned him last video, how he's hosting my website. I'm using his server, and the things I forgot maybe, or just didn't mention. I want to point out the different systems that were released, at least a few of them, more important systems that Atari released for the quote VCS 2600. And then I want to mention a couple of the controllers that actually uh, came in packed in games. Sometimes they were sold separately. But there's a few. Sometimes it was only one game exclusive to the controller, and you couldn't use it for anything else. I'm going to go to the Atari Age website and walk through the systems and some controllers. The Tron controller, for some reason, he doesn't have on his site. So I'll see if I can pull up a picture on maybe another site. The other thing is I'm going to try to cover the rest of the Ataris. 5200, I have some sealed box games, but 5200, I'll get into detail. I considered, I never played it. I have a system. I have lots of games, but the controllers had a tendency of breaking. So with other systems out there, the 2600, 7800, and things, playing a 5200, I mentioned I never owned this when I was, a teenager when this came out. Um, but I'll get into details on the 5200 because there are some collectible games for it. And the 7800, which is the third release. And I'll probably just mention and, not get into too many details. I'm going to look into some, uh, you know, uh, my brain's not working again, uh, value or suggestions for the Atari Lynx, which is the handheld, sort of like a Game Boy, uh, that Atari released, and the Atari Jaguar, which came out in the early 90s. I don't think it lasted long, but it's very tough to find. So we'll move on to my website first, and then I'll come back.
So here we are, videogamevariations.com. This is my home screen, and you'll see it as Atari 2600 and television. I'll click the Atari 2600. So here's your main page. That is the PDF label list. This is my giant file. I just started out about 60 pages. I think it's up to 150 now because I've added so much stuff. I put the abbreviations at the top to give you an idea of how to describe in the list. And you'll see here's each game with all the variations. So below, you'll see Atari at the top because it's the most important. Then I go to all the third-party releases. So I'm going to click the Atari, and you'll see 4 columns with the title. First one's a cartridge, second one's a manual, third one's a box. Notice the manuals are mostly missing. We're going to just show you an example of adventure. These are all the cartridge variations. I'm just scrolling down just to show you that there are a lot of them. And like I mentioned in the Atari video, certain variations are going to be rarer. Notice I needed a label text for the end label there. So I have the front label, but I don't have the end label. So sometimes the variations with the end label. The manuals, I click, you'll see the list of manuals with their descriptions, and then I'll click the first manual. This is your standard black small manual, and you'll see bottom right there, revision 1, and it says made in USA, printed in USA rather. And now we'll move to the box. So the adventure box, you'll see this again, several. There's a big description at the top because there's actually tiny differences, and I just didn't separate them out. Notice that's the white box warranty with the copyright outside. That one was the copyright inside, the 90-day warranty. And this is a 5-language variation box. Notice I'll point out the 5 different languages there. Self-explanatory. This copy of Atari Core 1986 scan, I think it's not that great, but you take what you can get. So this is a specific general Atari label variations. There are 3 text versions. I first text, second text, third text, and I have the end labels below them, but I point out exactly what's the differences. Then you got your black label, your silver label, your gray labels. So there's a lot of different variations you can see with the cartridges themselves. Not all games have each variation. There's red label and then brown label. We actually separate that out. These are the 4 kids games. So actually, you'll see more with Sesame Street, but examples. These are the weird labels that aren't fitting in any category. This section I'm pointing out PAL and how to identify PAL. You'll see either say PAL or there's little P's next to product numbers and such. And there's a big description on PAL right below it. So moving on to boxes. Like I said, there's a lot of box variations. This is the entire list. There's 13 different types of boxes, or 12 rather, that I categorized. The first one, of course, is the gatefold then the second one was game program, and I point out, the exact thing with game program, and it's yellow. But notice under each section, I list the exact games that have that variation, and I also list the printers. This is the third box variation, which is the solid warranty. I mixed up the fourth and fifth variations. The fourth one is the one with the copyright outside, and the fifth one is the copyright inside. So just read on each section. Has, like I said, there's the limited 90-day warranty. Each section has the list of games and the printers and the years, like the months, years. That's the weird box I mentioned, Berserk, Defender, and stuff. They don't categorize in any of the other ones. And again, there's the list of games with it. We'll wait and scroll down a little more. Notice it says Ed Pack San Francisco there. Then we moved on to the silver boxes. I just show E.T. Raiders of the Lost Ark as an example. Then they moved the logo to the top right, and I point that out in the cartridges too. There's Gremlins and Krull, another two good things to get graded. The kids' games is Cookie Monster Munch, which I mentioned in that first video. There's the Ikari Warriors, which is they found tons of. They also came out with some no frills, as you can see, solid white. They came in packs. School pack and programming pack and stuff. So there's only a few of these games, but it's an interesting variation. And again, you can read up on it. There are the gray boxes that I mentioned. There's that Pac-Man. Notice the Pac-Man has 5 languages. Okay, and then here are some other later releases. Notice I'm pointing out Atari Core and stuff. There are gray and solid boxes. There's your red box. This is the brown box. And here are your 5 language boxes. And we're going to move down. Notice I'm pointing out these are the original release as the 5 language boxes. And then sometimes they're originally released with 6 languages. And then later it'll come out with some of the other ones that are 1986, 87, 88. I pointed out those are 5 language later releases. These are 6 language later releases. These are strange variations. Notice you'll see golf. There's a list. There's several different boxes, but they are totally different colors from the original release. I'm showing Surround with a purple box, Yard's Revenge with a few languages, and then, as I mentioned in the video, there are top flaps. That's the standard tuck-in flap, and I'm pointing that out. And then we're going to move on to the glued flap. And like I said, it's glued on the back, and then once you open it, it tucks in that little tab there. And then this is the tab flap, which, again, I pointed out is like the cereal flap. So it'll tuck in just like a cereal box. And those are your 3 different flaps. So you can have different box variations with the flaps. These, as I mentioned, boxes that should exist and why. So most of these, they have cartridges that exist, but I can't find the box. Notice the manual list is huge because I haven't gotten through all the manuals, so it's a little more detailed. So let's go back. I'm going to show you, third party here. So this is 20th Century Fox. Notice there's no middle box because I haven't done any of the manuals yet. Popular one, and I mentioned this later on, not during the video. Flash Gordon's really, really cool. Activision, I started the manuals, but then I got sidetracked with it. Freeway, I just clicked as an example. Notice I didn't have the first box. That's the Sunnyvale address. Kaboom, same thing. For some reason, I can't find proof that they exist. Let's move down to another one. Coleco, Data Age, pointing out some of the more popular ones. Let's see, Parker Brothers, and what else am I looking at here? Zonix. I don't have anything for Zonix yet. I haven't done it. there's the Wizard video. I mentioned Halloween and Texas Chainsaw. No Friday the 13th. That's a cool box. I don't have the Halloween box or the Texas box, but I do own the games. And that's probably about it. Just explore on your own. There you go.
Okay, we're back. And, moving on to other websites, like I said, I'm going to go through the Atari age and show you the systems and some controllers. Another site that I use, and I actually mentioned about asking this person if I could use his photos because they were or were not from that guy who didn't want me to use his photos. Is Atari Mania, and he is very detailed. He does Atari everything, but he goes, and if you want a lot of information on Atari, he has commercials, he has ads, he has all these systems. He covers foreign releases, but a lot of it. He has emulators if you want to play some games. Um, People dump the ROMs and then upload them to his site, and so he's a wealth of information, and he's helped me. But again, he's missing a lot of things too. He's a one person, and I think he works strictly on people sending him the scans and stuff and the information, rather than, hey, I don't think he goes out and searches for things he's missing, because I mean he's got probably tens of thousands of games on there, between all the systems and things. So, like I said, it's a wealth of information. Um, he doesn't do the variations like I do. He doesn't describe anything. So he'll have like a 1978 so-and-so cartridge, combat or something, and he'll have it as text, and then he'll have a picture, and then he might have a PAL, and he'll get into details with some of the countries and stuff on languages and stuff. Sometimes it'll say international, 5 languages, multi-language, whatever. But you can just scan his site. I've spent thousands of hours. I've sent him lots of scans that he never had, and also I've helped him in the past. And like I said, he helps me. Another one is Atari Boxed. It's a newer site, but they're actually international people, and they're trying to deal with international, um, released games. I think they do put some of the U.S. release, but there's a lot of holes in his. Again, I guess just like me, you only have so much time in the day, so you could do your own homework and research and find some variations and things, and try to upload scans, front, back, box. But I've been getting a lot of the foreign variations from his site that I don't have already. And again, it's called AtariBox.com. I'm going to put the links in the comment section, and then you can check it out on your time. So we'll move on to the sites. Okay. So, as promised, I'm going to show you a couple of the sites. This is Atari Age, AtariAge.com. And when you type that, this is his home screen. And they actually have some things for sale, but this is huge for Atari. There's forums specifically for 2600, 5200, etc. They also have some forums on as normal forums. You can discuss anything. There's sections for it. But on the left side here, I know the screen looks a little warped. I'm not too sure exactly why. I don't know. It's just the camera, the way it goes. So we'll have to deal with that. But on the left side here, it has systems 2600, 5200, 7800, Lynx, and Jaguar. So what I wanted to point out, I mentioned earlier, I didn't do it in the other video. Click in the 2600, he's got a rarity guide, and you can search by title. You might want to pick specific company, but you can. He won't have as much detail on variations. He's missing some scans, a lot of scans and things. So again, he can't do everything, and so he relies on other people. And if people don't help him out, you're not going to see too much. But I did want to get into the systems, so we go to the hardware on the left. You see all these different things, uh, links, and the most important systems. As you could tell, there's been a decent amount of Atari systems out there, and clones. They call them clones, uh, unlicensed. They didn't pay Atari anything. They just created a system. But the most important, number one on the list, if you can find it, I don't know what chances are you'll find anything sealed. You can't get anything graded like this. It's just too big. Grading companies don't do systems. So I'd say be wary on buying sealed stuff because, I mean, what is the chance that something could be re-glued? I guess you could tell if it's not open carefully, you'd see bends on the flaps and stuff. But the most important system, original release, it's called the Heavy Sixer. Um, it has 6 switches on the front. The easiest way to tell is, it's heavier than what the next release was, which also has 6 switches on the front. It's a light sixer. But it's U-shaped here on the front corners. If you can see that, it'll be a U-shaped, more U-shaped. But there's probably information on the exact weights of how much a heavy sixer should weigh versus a light sixer. Because the components, I guess they used less components because back then, anything, chips, uh, the boards themselves or whatever, everything was expensive. One little chip that does practically nothing today could have been $2, $3, $4, $5. And who knows how many they had to have on the inside. I never really opened one up to look. But second release, here you go, light sixer. Again, 6 switches. But here, if you can put side by side, this is a V shape, more V than U on the front of the system. The other one, which is probably, so number one, I put the heavy sixer as investment purposes. Number 3, I'm probably going to give this one number 3, is what they call the Vader, of course, from Darth Vader, Star Wars, because it's all black. There's no wood grain. It's only 4 switches on the front, but more sought after than other systems if you're trying to collect different types of variations on systems. Um, the Atari Junior, that's not a Junior. I missed that. Where is the Atari Junior? Here we go. Atari Junior came out afterwards when they abandoned the switchers, the actual switches, and they have these like plastic mini switches that doesn't stick up because the switches, once in a while they would break. You literally can break them off. So you didn't want to. I guess Atari got fed up, and this is a much smaller model. So if you, much lighter, easier to connect and move around. There's no hard wiring. The 6 switchers, the 4 switches, they all had a hard wire that went into the TV box, into your TV. These have separate, sort of like Nintendo. You can use the same type of wire, the RCA wire. But anyway, so I think most of the games were compatible, if not all, with the Junior. Sometimes when they, moved on to different systems, like smaller versions or whatever, sometimes the games weren't always compatible. The other thing I want to mention, which I'm going to give number 2. So number 1, most best investment would be the 6 switcher heavy. The third one was Vader. Number 2, I'm going to put switch. This in small pictures. 6 switch Sears Telegames. And as I mentioned in the other video, Sears had their own system and packed in with Target Fun, which was Air Sea Battle instead of Combat. So you can find Sears 6 switcher boxed. I don't know if there was heavy six switchers and light 6 switchers with Sears. They only list one here, and then they show a 4 switch Sears. So like I said, there's lots of clones out there. I wouldn't suggest buying any of the clones. I think CBS. Is there a CBS? Oh, it's Coleco. Columbia. Well, Coleco came out with their own system. They called it the Gemini. which is probably another decent thing. But Columbia House, this was a part of that Columbia record company, the what do you call that? Subscription when you buy records and stuff, a mail away. I think they sold their arcade system through. It says this unit is extremely difficult to find as it was only sold through a mail order club. That's it, the club, initially, and not for very long. So this again, probably a great investment if you could find one. Um, what I also wanted to mention, which I think I said earlier, was controllers. So here's your standard Atari joystick. And when you click on the controller, it gives you a list of games. And as you can tell, the joystick is used in tons and tons of games. But there's some other controllers that Atari came out with that were made specifically for, games that you can't use the joystick. So the paddles is probably the second most popular. Quite a few games use paddles. So you can buy paddles. The problem is the paddles, the potentiometer, if I pronounced that correctly, would sometimes start jiggle. They call it the jiggling, and you can WD-40 it, and they said that'll fix it. But some people just threw away their paddles and bought new ones. Anyway, so there's a decent amount of games for the paddle controllers. Something that looks like a paddle controller is the driving controller, and if you look, it was made for the Indy 500, but there's a couple other things here that weren't made by Atari, but you can use this thrust. I actually have, I think it says platinum. I might actually have the platinum thing. This is a homebrew made by somebody themselves, and a lot of people make their own games and stuff, and sometimes their games are much better than the games back then because you've learned how to program better because back then, Atari or Activision, whatever, they were on time schedules. They needed to release games, so they tried to do their best. But you would come out with a game and it couldn't have been improved. This is brand new technology. People studied it now and learned a lot more in what they can do. So I'm going to do all the Atari things first. Kids controller, made for Sesame Street games, pretty much exclusively. You'll see things on this list here. Grover's Music Maker, that was never released. It's a prototype. Holy Moly, Monster Size. These are like all prototypes. But you'll see Oscar, Cookie Monster, Big Bird, and Alpha Bean with Ernie. Those are the 4 Sesame Street games. And they had giant overlays that went over the numbers, I guess to help the kids, figure out how to control. These kids are smart anyway. Track and field. This thing was released only for track and field, and it says track and field on it. So if you remember the arcade games, they had the 2 buttons, and then you had your fire button. So these 2 are your running buttons. You'd have to alternate really fast to start running. Then if you had hurdle, you would hit the fire button, jump the hurdle. Or if you were doing the broad jump, you reach the end of the line, you hit the fire button, you jump into the sandbox, or pole vaulting, whatever it was, you would run. That's what the white buttons were for, and then the action was the red button. The video touchpad. This game was for Star Raiders. This controller only Star Raiders, which buying it separate is useless. You might as well just buy it with the game. Finding sealed Star Raiders, it's actually pretty common. You can get a sealed Star Raiders for $20 or $25. In fact, I think I have some for that price, $20 or $25. I don't remember, but the outer box was never sealed on Star Raiders. The inner boxes were. At least the game inside was sealed. I don't know if the controller was sealed, but it had 2 inner boxes. One of them was the controller. The other one was the game. Then you had the outer box. Trackball, he doesn't have a picture. This was for, see if he suggested centipede, millipede. No, he has nothing listed there. But it's like a roller controller. Just like the arcade, you had that roll ball, and you would use it for millipede and centipede. The light gun. Remember Sentinel? I will have mentioned Sentinel for 2600. I mean, a 7800 in a little while. I'm recording this out of order, but Shooting Arcade. I don't think this was never released, but the Sentinel was. And it's the only thing. It's sort of like the light gun for Nintendo, but of course this is for Atari. So non Atari released things. Booster grip. If you find this in the box, it came with Omega Race, and again, that thrust homebrew is listed here that you can use it for. But this, I mean, some of these joysticks, they're cool, came with the system, but you could play the game using a regular joystick. So this was made probably just for do you want a front fire button? Do you want a top? More like a flight stick. They made this look like. So this came out CBS Electronics Omega Race. Then you have the Cosmic Command for Milton Bradley, Survival Run again. This thing looks really, really fancy. So it was pretty cool. And finding some of these things boxed, especially sealed, is rather difficult. What else do we have here? Flight Commander, that's Milton Bradley for Spitfire attack. And again, it has like the crosshairs. If you look there, it had crosshairs, so you can try to look through it to shoot things. Foot Craze. This is similar to the Nintendo. I'm gonna say Wii because it was the joypad or whatever it was called for Nintendo when you stepped on things. It came with these two games, Video Jogger, Video Reflex. These games are rare. This pad, Foot Craze pad, is rare. So if you could ever find this boxed, I'd say snatch it up. My Kid Vid, which they don't have a picture. The Kid Vid was the tape recorder. I showed you Berenstain Bears last week, or last session or video. So he doesn't have a picture of it, but again, I showed you it with the, what do you call that? Berenstain Bears. So I think that's it for this. I got one more I'm going to show you, but I want to jump to, because he doesn't have this here. Atari Mania. This guy has probably the most extensive information on all Atari stuff. I mean, he goes into computers, magazines. He's got the forums, but he's got emulators. So it says latest updates, and this is new dumps, meaning these are emulated games, ads. You just go through. Sometimes he'll have new scans for actual entries, like the actual games and stuff. But most of those things, it's crazy. So just look, and he says statistics. He has listing 9,484 games for the Atari 2600, and that includes all those foreign games, all the pirated games, but that's just 2600. And then he's got 400, 800 XL, XC. He's got over 10,000 games for combining all those computers. The Jaguar, there's 142 games. So, there's tons and tons and tons of stuff out there. So I keep saying, what's worth the investment? It's tough to call. Comic books, is a lot easier because you based it on a character or a series or something. Even trading cards, players, baseball cards, basketball cards, you collected a specific team, a specific player. It's tougher with the Atari, or in general, or any computer video game system, because do you want to concentrate on just one, say, Donkey Kong or Mario tie-ins? Anything tie-in with Mario, well, that's probably doable if you want to collect everything for every system pertaining to Mario. But it's just to try to collect every game out there for every system. It's impossible. And I think I mentioned that too. So I mentioned the 2600. So you go, it says, there's the 2600. Then I'm going to click Games. And he has visitors, top 25 downloads. So here's all the emulators. You want to play the game online with your computer, you can download the actual ROM and play the game using your computer or, I guess, phone or whatever. But if you want to search for specific games, uh, I suggest using the advanced search there. And it's easier if you pick a publisher. So if you pick Activision USA. So pick Activision. I'm not going to type in any specific title. This will bring up all his Activision USA, but they will list foreign games because Activision released the foreign games themselves. It wasn't a separate company. So if you look at Decathlon, so Activision Decathlon, he has Canadian version and it says NTSC. Then he has the black label. I'm going to actually show you a black label. And this is where you get into these variants. This is the black label. It's rather difficult to find. Similar to the blue label. And if you look, it says on the right here, it says PAL. He has English French, which to me is more Canadian, but he has it listed under a different. He has a CCAM, which is a third type of system, but I'm not going to get into that. Then he's got the white label, which is similar to the black. I think this is the one. Oops, I clicked white instead of Decathlon white. It should have the barcode. Nope, this is the solid white one. Okay, so this one's a solid white one. I think he has a second white listed for Decathlon. Here's the second one. It says PAL. Yeah, nope, that's the same one. Sometimes the white will have a barcode similar to the black. These whites that I just showed you are similar to the blue labels. But here, the standard or original is what would be the normal release. And here he has, and it keeps loading stuff, different boxes. Here's a regular box. Here's it looks like 5-language box. I'm not going to click it. But what he does is, if this version comes in any of these boxes, he'll lump them all together. That's the way he does his variants. But he doesn't describe the variants. It's like my site. I get into details. So play around. You're going to spend, if you're really into it, you're going to spend hours and hours. But what I did is I actually looked up, I typed, when I did that advanced search, I did M Network. It comes up M Network Mattel. And I typed Tron. And here you have Adventures of Tron. Then you have Tron Deadly Discs. These two games are readily available sealed. And I mean pretty readily available. So buying them loose, I mean like ungraded rather, you're not going to pay too much. Most of the times you're going to see it less than $40. That depends. They might have little dents or something. The boxes themselves for M Network, I think, are a little thinner, or a little more fragile. They have a tendency of folding. Some of the sealed games I have for it, they're not in the best of shape. Then he has separate here. It says Tron Deadly Discs, and then he's got the French words, which I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce. This thing every time it keeps trying to load. So here, let's discus. Okay, I tried. I give up. But this is the Canadian version, and he's got the front, and then he's got the back, and you see how it's English and then French. And Canadian versions are always English, French. And if you look, what he likes to do, he also has ads. He has a screenshot. So give you an idea of what the game looks like. And, don't expect much from Atari compared to what you can get today, because, technology was very primitive back then. So here's the joystick, the Tron controller. And it's exactly, to me, it was cool because it says for your Atari 2600 special pack. It comes with the joystick, and it comes with both Tron games, which is great. So get a different shot of it, different angle. But the classic, him throwing the disc. If you find this boxed, I have one loose. I do not have a box. Grab it, even if it doesn't have the games in it. You could always buy them and add them to it, I guess. But if you could find it sealed, that's probably one of the more holy grails. Here's it loose, and if you played the arcade game, this is similar to the arcade game where you had a Tron controller, and it looks different. If I can remember right, you could just do a Google search or something to look up arcade. But if I remember right, the controller is slightly different. But again, it's a cool peripheral, add to your collection. And It's got showing both sides. It's got the button in the front. It shows the 2 games. Actually, I don't know if the games are sealed in there. I don't know if they came sealed or if they were just loose in there. So you might be better off buying this sealed. And it does the paperwork and things. Oh, it looks like maybe it did come sealed. And again, paperwork, ads. Sometimes they'll have commercials in the bottom. So it'd be cool to check out some things. The old commercials are great, even if they're only like 20 to 30 seconds for the most part. But I'm going to post a couple of the other websites besides these 2 in the comments. And, you get some time. Atari Box, I'm not going to get into it, but he's mostly the foreign games and stuff. And, again, work in progress. You got to give, I give kudos for anybody, including myself, who spend the time doing all this research and trying to help out the collecting community. But it is a lot of work. So hope you enjoyed it.
So we'll be splitting this video into 2 parts. We're ending it with the Atari 2600 websites that I just showed you. Below in the comments, I'm going to list all the informative sites I can think of. And, you can browse and maybe learn something. If you're a collector, maybe you can contribute to any of these guys' sites. And hopefully you'll learn something. So like, subscribe, make comments, ask questions. And we'll see you next week with part 2 featuring the Atari 5200 and 7800.